My name is Julia, and I'm about to tell you how one whisper at a wedding destroyed everything I thought I knew about my family. I'm 29, married to the most observant man alive, and until last weekend, I genuinely believed I had found peace with my past. You know that feeling when you think you finally moved on from something that once broke you? When you convince yourself that the scars have healed and you're stronger for it? I was wrong. My younger sister Emily was getting married, and not just any wedding. This was the kind of Pinterest-perfect, Instagram-worthy celebration that makes other brides weep with envy. Garden ceremony with white roses climbing every archway, 200 guests dressed to the nines, a champagne tower that sparkled like diamonds in the afternoon sun, and a string quartet that made even the cynics tear up during the processional. Emily had always been the golden child, the one who got the bigger bedroom, the newer car, the parents' undivided attention, and unconditional forgiveness. But despite years of living in her shadow, I genuinely loved her. I'd helped coordinate this wedding for months, handled every crisis from the florist's emergency to the caterer's meltdown, and even paid for her custom veil when she forgot her credit card was maxed out. I was happy for her, truly, genuinely happy. Until my husband David leaned toward me during the reception dinner, his face pale as death, and whispered the words that would shatter my world. "We have to go. Now." Let me paint you a picture of Emily's wedding, because context matters when your life implodes. The venue was a restored Victorian mansion with gardens that belonged in a fairy tale. Emily walked down the aisle in a dress that cost more than my car, looking like she'd stepped out of a bridal magazine. Her new husband, Marcus, couldn't stop crying happy tears. My parents sat in the front row, beaming with pride that their precious daughter had landed such a catch, a successful lawyer with old money and a family name that opened doors. I sat in the third row with David, watching Emily promise to love, honor, and cherish until death do them part. The irony wasn't lost on me. Emily had never honored anything in her life, unless you counted her ability to honor herself above everyone else. But I pushed those bitter thoughts away. This was her day. I'd made peace with being the backup daughter, the reliable one who cleaned up messes while Emily collected praise for just existing. The cocktail hour was flawless. Past hors d'oeuvres, signature cocktails named after the happy couple, and a jazz trio that made everyone feel sophisticated. I mingled, complimented Emily's choices, and played the role of supportive older sister to perfection. David seemed quieter than usual, but he'd been working overtime lately, and weddings weren't really his scene. He's more of a quiet observer, the kind of man who notices things others miss. It's one of the things I love most about him. Nothing gets past David Chen. Nothing. During dinner, I was actually enjoying myself. The speeches were funny without being embarrassing. The food was exceptional. And for once, I wasn't stressed about Emily's wedding going off without a hitch. Everything was perfect. Too perfect. That should have been my first warning. David had been watching the crowd all evening. I'd noticed him scanning faces, but I assumed he was just being antisocial. He does that sometimes, studies people like he's cataloging them for future reference. But when he leaned over during the main course, his voice tight with something I'd never heard before, I knew this wasn't about social anxiety. "We have to go. Now." I looked at him, fork halfway to my mouth. "What?" "David, we haven't even had cake yet. Please." His hand found mine under the table, and it was shaking. "Just trust me. We need to leave." I'd never seen David like this. In 5 years of marriage, through job losses and family deaths and every crisis that tests a relationship, David had been my rock. Calm, analytical, unshakable. The man who talked me through panic attacks and made rational decisions when I couldn't think straight. This wasn't that David. This David looked like he'd seen a ghost. "What's wrong?" I whispered back, suddenly aware that other guests might be watching. "Are you sick?" "Not here." He was already reaching for his jacket. "I'll explain in the car. Please, Julia, I need you to trust me on this." The desperation in his voice made my stomach drop. David didn't do desperation. David did logic and evidence and careful consideration of all options. But I trusted him more than anyone in the world, so I stood up. We slipped out through the kitchen, avoiding the main reception area where Emily was holding court with her new in-laws. David's hand was firm on my back, guiding me past confused catering staff and through a service door that led to the parking area. "David, you're scaring me." My heels clicked on the brick pathway as I struggled to keep up with his urgent pace. "What happened in there?" He stopped next to our car, hands shaking as he pulled out his phone. The evening air was cool against my skin, and suddenly I was very aware of how isolated we were from the warmth and laughter inside. "Do you recognize him?" David showed me a photo on his phone. It was a candid shot, taken from across the reception hall. A man in a perfectly tailored blue suit, standing by the bar with a cocktail in his hand. Dark hair, confident posture, laughing at something someone had said. I looked closer and my heart stopped. Oh my God. It was Dylan Matthews, my Dylan. The man who had destroyed me 6 years ago with his sudden, complete disappearance from my life. "I thought it might be him," David said quietly. "Same build, same way of holding himself. But I wasn't sure until I got closer." My legs felt weak. "That's impossible. Emily would have told me if he was going to be here. She knows what he did to me." David's expression was grim. "Julia, there's more." He swiped to the next photo. Dylan again, but this time he wasn't alone. He was embracing someone in a tight hug, both of them laughing like they shared the world's best secret. The someone was Emily. And based on the background, a coffee shop I recognized from downtown, this photo was recent, very recent. "When was this taken?" My voice sounded far away, like it was coming from someone else. 2 weeks ago, according to the timestamp, I saw them together and thought it was weird, so I took a picture. I was going to ask you about it, but then I figured maybe she was just catching up with old friends for the wedding. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. "He's here as a guest?" "He's the best man's roommate from college." Marcus introduced him to me as his unofficial groomsman. Apparently, he flew in from Portland just for the wedding. Portland. Dylan had moved to Portland after he vanished from my life. I knew this because I'd spent months stalking his social media like a pathetic ex-girlfriend, watching him build a new life without me. "David, I don't understand. If Emily's been in contact with him, why wouldn't she tell me? She knows how much he hurt me." David was quiet for a long moment, and I could see him weighing his words carefully. When he finally spoke, his voice was gentle but firm. "Because I don't think this is a coincidence, Julia, and I don't think it started recently." The parking lot was spinning. Or maybe I was spinning. David caught my elbow and guided me to lean against our car. "Breathe," he said, "just breathe for a minute." But I couldn't breathe. 6 years of questions were suddenly demanding answers, and the answers were all pointing towards something I'd never considered. "Tell me what you're thinking," I managed. David pulled up his phone again. After I recognized him, I got curious. "You know how I am. I had to know why your sister's ex-boyfriend was at her wedding." "He wasn't Emily's ex-boyfriend, he was mine." "I know. That's what made it weird." David scrolled through more photos. "So, I did some digging. Social media, mutual connections, that kind of thing. And Julia, I found some things that don't add up." He showed me a screenshot from Dylan's Instagram, dated 3 years ago. It was a group photo from some kind of party, and there in the corner, partially hidden behind other people, was Emily. She was wearing a dress I recognized. My favorite black cocktail dress, the one that had mysteriously disappeared from my closet around that time. "Look at the date," David said. January 15th, my birthday. The birthday when Dylan had supposedly been too busy with work to celebrate with me, even though we'd been together for almost 2 years at that point. The birthday when I'd sat alone in my apartment, wondering if I was being too needy for wanting my boyfriend to acknowledge the day I was born. There's more screenshots. Dylan and Emily at a coffee shop. Dylan and Emily at a bookstore. Dylan and Emily at a farmer's market, looking domestic and comfortable like they'd done this 100 times before. All dated during the time when Dylan was supposedly my devoted boyfriend. "How far back do these go?" I whispered. "As far as I could find, about 4 years. But Julia, social media only shows you what people want you to see. If they were careful about not being photographed together." He didn't need to finish the sentence. If they'd been careful, this could have been going on much longer, maybe even from the beginning. "You think she stole him?" It wasn't a question. "I think your sister has been lying to you for a very long time." I closed my eyes and let myself remember that birthday. Really remember it, not the sanitized version I'd created to make it hurt less. Dylan and I had been together for almost 2 years. We'd talked about moving in together, about maybe getting engaged soon. I was 23 and stupidly in love. The kind of love that makes you ignore red flags because you're too busy planning your future together. He'd been distant for weeks leading up to my birthday. Working late, canceled dates, short text messages instead of our usual long phone conversations. When I asked him about it, he said his boss was demanding crazy hours and he was stressed about a big project. I believed him because I wanted to believe him. The morning of my birthday, he'd sent a text. "Happy birthday, baby. Rain check on tonight? Work emergency. I'll make it up to you this weekend." There was no work emergency. There was Emily, wearing my dress, sharing my birthday with my boyfriend. "She knew," I said out loud, and hearing the words made them real. She knew it was my birthday, and she went out with him anyway. David's hand found mine. "I'm sorry, Julia. I'm so sorry." But I wasn't sad anymore. I was angry. 6 years of thinking I'd done something wrong. 6 years of wondering what I could have done differently. 6 years of carrying the weight of a relationship that had died without explanation. And all this time, Emily had known exactly why Dylan disappeared. Because she'd been the reason. "We have to go back in," I said. David looked alarmed. "Julia, maybe we should go home. Process this first. Figure out how you want to handle it." "No." I straightened up, smoothing down my dress. "I've been processing this for 6 years. I think I'm done processing." "What are you going to do?" I looked back at the Victorian mansion, lights glowing warm and golden, the sound of laughter and music drifting through the evening air. Inside, 200 people were celebrating Emily's perfect love story, toasting her happiness, wishing her well. Inside, my parents were probably telling anyone who would listen how proud they were of their younger daughter, how she'd found such a wonderful man, how everything had worked out exactly as it should. Inside, Emily was playing the blushing bride, accepting congratulations and gifts and well wishes for a marriage built on lies. "I'm going to tell the truth," I said. David caught my arm. "Think about this. Really think about it. Once you do this, there's no taking it back. Your relationship with your family will never be the same." He was right, and I knew it. But as I stood there in the parking lot, looking at photo evidence of my sister's betrayal, I realized something important. My relationship with my family was already broken. It had been broken for 6 years. I'd just been too naive to see it. "They watched me fall apart," I said quietly. "When Dylan ghosted me, I was devastated. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't function, and Emily was there, being the supportive little sister helping me get through it." The memory was crystal clear now. Emily bringing me ice cream and rom-coms, listening to me cry about how I must have done something wrong, reassuring me that Dylan wasn't worth my tears, all while she was the reason for those tears. My parents saw me struggle for months. They paid for therapy because I couldn't get over the loss. And the whole time, Emily knew exactly what had happened. "You don't know that your parents knew," David said gently. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "David, you've met my parents. Emily is their precious princess who can do no wrong. Do you really think she kept something this big from them? Do you think they would have cared if she had?" He was quiet because we both knew the answer. "I'm done protecting people who never protected me," I said. "I'm done being the understanding one, the mature one, the one who keeps the peace at her own expense." I started walking back toward the mansion. "Julia, wait." David caught up with me. "If you're really going to do this, then I'm with you. But let's be smart about it. What exactly are you planning to say?" I stopped walking and turned to look at him. My husband, my partner, the one person who had always been on my side. Even now, when I was about to blow up my family, he was trying to help me do it in the least destructive way possible. "I don't know yet," I admitted, "but I know I can't sit through the rest of this reception pretending everything is fine. I can't watch Emily cut her cake and toss her bouquet and drive off into her happily ever after knowing what I know." "Okay," David nodded. "Then let's go back in. But promise me something. If you change your mind, if you decide you want to handle this privately later, just give me a signal and we'll leave. No questions asked." I took his hand and squeezed it. "I promise." But even as I said it, I knew I wouldn't change my mind. The time for handling things privately, for protecting Emily's feelings at the expense of my own, was over. It had been over the moment Dylan chose her over me 6 years ago. It had been over the moment Emily decided to let me believe it was my fault. And it was definitely over now that she'd built her perfect wedding on the foundation of my heartbreak. We slipped back into the reception through the main entrance this time. The party was in full swing. The dance floor was packed, the bar was busy, and Emily was glowing as she made her way from table to table, accepting congratulations and air kisses from guests. She looked radiant, happy, completely unaware that her world was about to implode. I found Dylan immediately. He was standing near the dessert table with a group of Marcus's college friends, and seeing him in person after 6 years was like being punched in the stomach. He looked exactly the same, maybe a little older, a little more polished, but still the man I'd once thought I'd marry. He hadn't noticed me yet, too caught up in whatever story he was telling to the group around him. They were all laughing, and for a moment I felt a flash of the old pain, the wondering what was so wrong with me that he could just walk away without a word. But that pain was different now. It wasn't about my inadequacy anymore. It was about his cruelty and Emily's betrayal and 6 years of carrying shame that had never been mine to carry. I walked to the head table where the wedding party was seated. Emily's maid of honor, her college roommate Jessica, was just finishing a speech about how Emily had always known exactly what she wanted and never let anything stand in her way. How perfectly ironic. I waited until Jessica sat down, then I stood up and reached for one of the champagne flutes that had been set aside for toasts. The conversations around me gradually quieted as people realized someone else was about to speak. Emily looked up at me from across the room, surprise and delight on her face. She probably thought I was going to give some touching speech about sisterly love and childhood memories. "Excuse me," I said, loud enough to be heard over the music. "Could I have everyone's attention for a moment?" The DJ noticed the commotion and turned down the music. Conversations died away as 200 people turned to look at me. Emily was beaming, her hands clasped together like she couldn't wait to hear what I had to say. My parents looked proud, their elder daughter, finally taking center stage at their younger daughter's wedding. Dylan was looking directly at me now, and I saw the exact moment he recognized me. His face went white, and he took a step backward like he was trying to disappear into the crowd. Too late for that. "I want to make a toast," I said, raising my champagne flute. "To my sister Emily, the most beautiful bride I've ever seen." Emily's smile was radiant. She raised her own glass, and Marcus wrapped his arm around her waist. "Emily has always been special," I continued. "She's always known how to get exactly what she wants, no matter what it takes." A few people in the crowd chuckled appreciatively. They thought this was going to be a heartwarming speech about determination and following your dreams. "And I want to toast to secrets," I said, my voice carrying clearly across the silent room. "The kind of secrets that ruin families, but somehow still manage to walk down the aisle in a white dress." The chuckling stopped. People started looking at each other uncertainly. Emily's smile faltered. "To ex-boyfriends who vanish without a word," I continued, looking directly at Dylan. "And to sisters who keep them warm while they disappear." The silence in the room was deafening. You could have heard a champagne bubble pop. Emily's face had gone completely white. "Julia, what are you—" "To family members who watch you fall apart and never mention that they know exactly why you're broken." I looked at my parents, who were staring at me in horror. To birthdays spent alone while your boyfriend celebrates with someone else? To wearing your sister's clothes on dates with your sister's boyfriend? Someone gasped. Marcus was looking back and forth between Emily and me like he was trying to solve a puzzle. Dylan had gone completely rigid, his face a mask of panic. "Julia, stop!" Emily's voice was shaky now. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Don't I?" I stepped down from the head table and walked toward the center of the room, still holding my champagne flute like a weapon. "Dylan Matthews, would you like to tell my sister's new husband about our relationship? About how you ghosted me 6 years ago while you were sleeping with Emily?" The room erupted. Gasps, whispers, the sound of chairs scraping as people turned to get a better view of the drama unfolding. Dylan looked like he wanted to crawl under a table. "Julia, Or maybe Emily would like to explain why she let me go to therapy for months, thinking I'd done something wrong, when she knew the whole time that you'd left me for her?" Emily was crying now, mascara starting to run down her cheeks. "It wasn't like that. You don't understand." "Then explain it to me." I was surprised by how calm my voice sounded. "Explain how it wasn't like that. Explain the Instagram photos. Explain why you were wearing my dress on my birthday while my boyfriend was supposedly too busy to see me." Marcus stepped away from Emily like she was suddenly radioactive. "What is she talking about?" "It's not," Emily's voice cracked. "I can explain." "You had 6 years to explain," I said. "You chose not to. You chose to let me believe I was the problem. You chose to let me carry that pain while you built a relationship on the ashes of mine. The room was in chaos now. Guests were pulling out phones, whispering frantically to each other, trying to figure out what they were witnessing. Some people were already heading for the exits. My parents finally found their voices. "Julia!" My mother's voice was sharp with panic. "That's enough? You're ruining your sister's wedding?" I turned to look at her, this woman who had raised me but had never really seen me. "I'm not ruining anything, Mom. I'm just telling the truth. The truth you all decided I didn't deserve to know." "This is not the time or place," my father started. "When would be the time?" I interrupted. "When was I supposed to find out? At Emily's first anniversary? When they have kids? Never?" I looked around the room at the faces staring back at me. Some shocked, some sympathetic, some clearly just excited to be witnessing the most dramatic wedding meltdown in recent memory. "I'm sorry everyone's evening has been disrupted," I said. "But I'm not sorry for telling the truth. Emily made her choices 6 years ago. She chose Dylan over me, and she chose lies over honesty. And all of you," I looked at my parents, "chose to protect her instead of me." I set my champagne flute down on the nearest table. "Enjoy the rest of the reception," I said. "I hope the cake is worth it." And then I walked out, David right behind me, leaving behind the wreckage of the perfect wedding and the perfect family that had never been either of those things. What happens next will shock you even more. The confrontation in the parking lot, Emily's desperate phone call, and the devastating truth about what really happened 6 years ago, it's all coming. You won't believe how deep this betrayal actually goes. David and I made it exactly 10 steps into the parking lot before we heard the commotion behind us. "Julia! Julia!" It was Emily, still in her wedding dress, running across the brick pathway in her heels like her life depended on catching us. Her perfect updo was coming undone, and her makeup was streaked with tears. Behind her, chaos. Guests were streaming out of the venue, some heading to their cars, others clustered in groups whispering frantically. I could see Marcus standing in the doorway looking shell-shocked, and my parents pushing through the crowd, trying to follow Emily. "Don't you dare walk away from me!" Emily's voice was raw with desperation. "Don't you dare do this and then just leave." I turned around slowly. After 6 years of wondering, 6 years of self-doubt, 6 years of carrying shame that wasn't mine, I was finally going to get the conversation I'd never been allowed to have. "Do what, Emily? Tell the truth?" She stumbled to a stop in front of me, breathing hard, her wedding dress dirty at the hem from running. "You don't understand. It wasn't how you made it sound in there." "Then explain it to me." I crossed my arms. "Right now, no more lies, no more excuses. Tell me exactly how it was." Emily looked back toward the venue, where more people were gathering to watch our impromptu parking lot drama. Marcus was walking slowly toward us, and I could see Dylan hovering near the entrance like he couldn't decide whether to run or stay. "Not here," Emily said. "There are too many people." "No," my voice was firm. "Right here, right now. You had 6 years to have this conversation privately. You chose not to, so now we're having it publicly." David stepped closer to me, a silent show of support. My parents had finally made it through the crowd and were approaching cautiously, like they were afraid I might explode again. "Julia, honey," my mother said in her most diplomatic voice, "let's all just take a breath and stay out of this, Mom." I didn't take my eyes off Emily. "This is between me and the sister who destroyed my life and then let me believe it was my own fault." Emily was crying harder now, but I felt no sympathy. I'd cried plenty of tears over this. It was her turn. "It wasn't supposed to happen," she whispered. "I never meant for it to go that far." "What wasn't supposed to happen? Be specific." She glanced around at all the faces watching us. Wedding guests, family members, strangers who just wanted to witness a beautiful ceremony and instead got front row seats to a family implosion. "Dylan and I met at that party at Sarah's house, remember? You brought him as your date, and I was home from college for the weekend." I remembered. It was about 2.5 years into our relationship. Emily had just finished her sophomore year and was staying with our parents for the summer. Dylan and I were solid, talking about moving in together, planning weekend trips, completely committed to each other, or so I thought. "He was so easy to talk to," Emily continued, her voice getting smaller. "We had the same taste in books, same sense of humor. You were in the kitchen helping Sarah with something, and we just connected. So you decided to steal him? It wasn't like that, Emily's voice cracked. We were just friends at first. We would text sometimes about books or movies or whatever. It was innocent. For how long? She was quiet for so long, I thought she wouldn't answer. Finally, about 6 months. 6 months of secret texting. 6 months of emotional intimacy building behind my back. 6 months of my boyfriend developing feelings for my sister while I planned our future together. When did it become physical? Emily flinched like I'd hit her. Julia, please. When? My birthday. The words came out in a whisper. We met for coffee to celebrate, and it just happened. Emily's birthday was in October. Dylan and I broke up, or rather Dylan ghosted me, in December, which meant they'd been physically involved for at least 2 months while he was still my boyfriend. The betrayal was so complete, so thorough that it took my breath away. So you cheated, I said flatly, both of you, for months. We tried to stop, Emily said desperately. We both knew it was wrong, but we couldn't help how we felt about each other. I laughed, but it sounded more like a bark. You couldn't help it? That's your excuse? You couldn't help destroying your sister's relationship because you had feelings? You don't understand what it was like. Emily's voice was rising now, defensive and angry. You had everything, Julia. You were always the smart one, the responsible one, the one Mom and Dad were proud of. And then you had Dylan too, and he was perfect. And I thought just once, maybe I could have something that was supposed to be yours. The honesty of it hit me like a physical blow. She hadn't stolen Dylan because she loved him. She'd stolen him because he was mine. So this was about me, about hurting me. No. Emily shook her head frantically. It was about me finally feeling like I was first choice for someone, like I was the one someone preferred. By taking away the person I loved. I didn't plan it, it just happened, and then it kept happening. And by the time we realized how deep we were in, it was too late to go back. Marcus had finally reached us, and he looked like a man who just watched his entire world collapse. Emily, is this true? You had an affair with her boyfriend? Emily turned to her new husband, panic in her eyes. Marcus, I can explain. Is it true? His voice was cold, nothing like the warm, loving tone he'd used in his wedding vows just hours earlier. Yes, but Jesus Christ. Marcus ran his hands through his hair. We just got married, Emily. We just made vows to each other. That was 6 years ago. It has nothing to do with us. It has everything to do with us. Marcus's voice was getting louder, and more guests were stopping to listen. You lied to me? For how long? How long have you been lying about this? Emily looked trapped, her gaze darting between Marcus and me and our parents and the growing crowd of wedding guests who were getting way more entertainment than they'd bargained for. I never lied, she said weakly. I just didn't tell you. Same thing, Marcus and I said at the same time. There's more, isn't there? David's voice was quiet, but it carried clearly in the evening air. This isn't the whole story. I looked at my husband, the man who noticed everything. What do you mean? The timeline doesn't add up, he said, looking directly at Emily. If you and Dylan were together for 2 months before he broke up with Julia, why did he ghost her? Why not just break up with her, honestly? Emily's face went even whiter, if that was possible. And why did he disappear from both of your lives afterward? David continued. If you two were so in love that you couldn't help yourselves, why didn't you end up together? The silence stretched on forever. Emily looked like she was about to be sick. Emily, I said slowly, understanding starting to dawn. Why didn't you and Dylan end up together? We did, she whispered. For a while. How long is a while? She looked at the ground. 2 years. 2 years. They'd been together for 2 years after Dylan ghosted me, and I'd never known. While I was in therapy trying to figure out what was wrong with me, while I was going on awkward first dates and wondering if I'd ever find love again, Emily and Dylan had been building a relationship. Why did it end? Marcus asked. His voice was eerily calm now, like he was a lawyer cross-examining a witness. Emily was crying again, but these weren't pretty tears. These were ugly, desperate sobs. He said he wanted to move to Portland for work. He asked me to come with him. And I said no. I was finishing my master's degree and I had that internship lined up here, and I thought he would choose me over the job. The picture was becoming clear now, and it was even uglier than I'd imagined. He left you too, I said. Dylan left you the same way he left me. Emily nodded miserably. When? 3 years ago? 3 years ago, which meant Emily had been dealing with her own Dylan-shaped heartbreak when she met Marcus, which meant she'd built her relationship with Marcus on the rebound from the man she'd stolen from me. Does Marcus know about Dylan at all? I asked. Emily shook her head. Marcus looked like he'd been punched. Who is Dylan to you, Emily? Who is he really? He's... Emily's voice was barely audible. He's the one that got away. The admission hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Marcus stepped back from Emily like she'd slapped him. You married me because you couldn't have him, Marcus said. It wasn't a question. That's not true. Emily reached for him, but he pulled away. I love you, Marcus. I chose you. You settled for me. No. After he left you the same way he left your sister, you found someone safe, someone who wouldn't hurt you the way he did. Marcus's voice was getting shakier. Someone you could control. Emily was sobbing now, her perfect wedding makeup completely destroyed. Please, Marcus, don't do this. Not here. Not here. Marcus laughed bitterly. You mean the same way you didn't want to do this honestly 3 years ago? Or 6 years ago when you were cheating with your sister's boyfriend? I almost felt sorry for Emily. Almost. But then I remembered 6 years of carrying shame that wasn't mine. 6 years of wondering what I'd done wrong. 6 years of thinking I wasn't worthy of love. There's something else, I said. Isn't there, Emily? She looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. Dylan being here today. That's not a coincidence. Emily's silence was answer enough. You invited him, I continued. You're the reason he's here. Emily's breakdown was complete now. She sank down onto the curb in her wedding dress, not caring that she was ruining thousands of dollars of silk and lace. I didn't invite him, she said through her tears, but I didn't stop it when I found out he was coming. How did you find out? Marcus mentioned that his friend Jake was bringing his roommate from Portland. When he said the name Dylan Matthews, I knew. Marcus was staring at his bride like he'd never seen her before. You knew my friend's roommate was your ex-boyfriend, and you didn't tell me? I thought I could handle it. I thought I was over him. And are you? The question came from me, but I think we all knew the answer. Emily looked up at me with devastating honesty. I don't know. Marcus turned and started walking away, but Emily scrambled to her feet and chased after him. Marcus, wait. Please don't go. We can work through this. Work through what? He spun around to face her. Work through the fact that you married me while you're still in love with someone else? Work through the fact that you've been lying to me for our entire relationship? I never lied about loving you. You lied about everything else. Marcus's composure finally cracked. Do you have any idea what this feels like? Finding out on my wedding day that my wife settled for me? That she's been carrying a torch for some guy who treated her like garbage? Dylan didn't treat me like garbage, Emily said, and the defense in her voice was automatic, instinctive. The words hung in the air like a confession. Marcus laughed, but it was the sound of something breaking. You're defending him. Right now at our wedding, you're defending the man who abandoned you. He didn't abandon me. He asked me to come with him. And when you said no, he left anyway. How is that not abandonment? Emily didn't have an answer for that. I stepped forward because suddenly I understood something that had been nagging at me. Emily, why did you really say no when Dylan asked you to move to Portland? She looked at me like I was speaking a foreign language. You said you had school and an internship, but you could have deferred. You could have found opportunities in Portland, so why did you really stay? Emily was quiet for so long, I thought she wouldn't answer. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. Because I was scared he would leave me too. The truth hit me like a physical blow. You were scared he would do to you what he did to me. Emily nodded miserably. So you chose to end it first. You chose to stay here and let him go, rather than risk being abandoned. I thought if I didn't go with him, he would realize he couldn't live without me. I thought he would choose me over the job. But he didn't. No, he didn't. Marcus was staring at Emily like he was seeing her for the first time. So you never got closure either. You've been wondering what if for 3 years, the same way Julia wondered for 6 years. Emily's silence was confirmation. And when you found out he was coming to our wedding, you saw it as a second chance. Marcus continued, his voice getting colder. You saw it as an opportunity to finally get the closure you needed, or maybe to rekindle what you lost. No, Emily's denial was desperate. I married you because I love you. You married me because he was unavailable, Marcus said quietly, and now he's here and single, and you don't know what you want anymore. The accuracy of his assessment was written all over Emily's face. I need to go, Marcus said, pulling off his wedding ring. I can't do this right now. Marcus, please. But he was already walking away, leaving Emily standing in the parking lot in her ruined wedding dress, holding her bouquet like a shield against the world. Our parents, who had been standing frozen throughout this entire exchange, finally found their voices. Look what you've done, my mother said to me, her voice shaking with anger. Look what you've done to your sister's marriage. I stared at her in disbelief. What I've done? You could have handled this privately. You could have talked to Emily later, worked this out as a family. Instead, you chose to humiliate her in front of everyone. I chose to tell the truth. You chose to be vindictive, my father added. You chose revenge over family. The injustice of it was breathtaking. Even now, even after everything that had been revealed, they were still protecting Emily and blaming me. Where was the family when Emily was lying to me for 6 years? I asked. Where was the family when I was falling apart because of something she did? That was different, my mother said. That was between you and Dylan. It was between me and Emily the moment she decided to pursue my boyfriend behind my back. She was young. She was old enough to know right from wrong. I looked at Emily, who was still crying on the curb. Weren't you, Emily? You knew exactly what you were doing. Emily looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. I'm sorry, Julia. I'm so sorry. For which part? For sleeping with my boyfriend? For lying about it for 6 years? For letting me believe I was the problem? Or for not caring enough about your marriage to be honest with your husband? For all of it. Emily's voice was broken. For all of it. The apology I'd wanted for 6 years, and now that I had it, it felt empty. Too little, too late, and tainted by the fact that it had taken public humiliation to drag it out of her. I don't forgive you, I said quietly. I don't think I ever will. Emily nodded like she'd expected as much. But I'm glad I finally know the truth. I'm glad I don't have to carry your shame anymore. I turned to my parents. And I'm glad I know where I stand with you. It's exactly where I've always stood, second to Emily, even when she's the one who's wrong. Julia, that's not fair, my mother started. Isn't it? Even now, even after everything that's been revealed, you're more concerned about Emily's feelings than mine. More concerned about her reputation than the fact that she destroyed my relationship and then lied about it for years. My parents looked stricken, but they didn't deny it. I'm done, I said. I'm done pretending we're a happy family. I'm done pretending that Emily's happiness is more important than everyone else's. And I'm done pretending that it's okay to sacrifice my well-being for hers. I took David's hand. We're leaving? Don't contact me unless you're ready to acknowledge what really happened here, and what's been happening for the last 6 years. As we walked toward our car, I heard Emily call out one last time, Julia, what am I supposed to do now? I stopped and turned around. Emily was still sitting on the curb in her wedding dress, surrounded by the wreckage of her perfect day. My parents were standing helplessly nearby, and the remaining wedding guests were watching from a distance, like they were afraid to get too close to the drama. I don't know, Emily, I said. For the first time in 6 years, your problems aren't my responsibility. David and I drove home in silence. The events of the evening felt surreal, like they'd happened to someone else. But as we pulled into our driveway, the reality of what I'd done started to sink in. I'd blown up my family, I'd ruined my sister's wedding, I'd aired our dirty laundry in front of 200 people, and I felt lighter than I had in years. Any regrets? David asked as we sat in the car, neither of us ready to go inside and face the quiet. I thought about it honestly. I regret that it had to happen publicly. I regret that Marcus got hurt. I regret that my parents chose Emily's side even after learning the truth. But I don't regret telling the truth. I don't regret standing up for myself. And I don't regret finally getting the answers I needed. David squeezed my hand. I'm proud of you. Even though I just destroyed my relationship with my entire family, your family destroyed that relationship 6 years ago. You just finally acknowledged it. We went inside, and I immediately changed out of my dress. The dress I'd bought specifically for Emily's wedding, the dress I'd chosen to make her happy on her special day. I put on pajamas and washed off my makeup, erasing any trace of the evening. My phone had been buzzing constantly since we left the venue. Text messages, missed calls, voicemails. I turned it off without looking at any of them. "What happens now?" I asked David as we sat on our couch, finally processing everything. "Now you heal," he said. "Really heal this time, without carrying shame that isn't yours. And my family? That's up to them. They know the truth now. What they do with it is their choice." I turned my phone back on 3 days later. 47 missed calls, 63 text messages, and 12 voicemails. Most of them were from numbers I didn't recognize, probably wedding guests who'd gotten my information from someone and wanted to share their opinions about what they'd witnessed. I deleted those without reading them. Several were from my parents, a mix of anger and attempts at reconciliation. I wasn't ready for those yet. A few were from friends who'd heard about the wedding drama through the grapevine and wanted to check on me. And one was from Emily. The voicemail was 23 minutes long. I almost didn't listen to it. But curiosity won, and I hit play while David was at work. Emily's voice was hoarse, like she'd been crying for days. "Julia, it's me. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I need to tell you some things. Marcus left. He's staying with his brother while he decides what he wants to do about the marriage. He took off his ring and told me he needs time to figure out if he can ever trust me again. I don't blame him. I wouldn't trust me either. The thing is, you were right about everything, about all of it. I did steal Dylan from you. I did let you believe it was your fault. I did lie to Marcus about my past. And I did marry him because Dylan wasn't available. But here's the part I couldn't say in front of everyone. I was jealous of you. I've always been jealous of you. You were the smart one, the responsible one, the one who had her life together. And when Dylan chose you, it felt like proof that you were better than me at everything, even getting the guy. So when he started paying attention to me, it felt like I was finally winning at something. Like I was finally first choice. And once I had that feeling, I couldn't give it up. I knew it was wrong. I knew it would hurt you, but I convinced myself that if Dylan really loved you, he wouldn't be interested in me. I convinced myself that if your relationship was strong enough, nothing I did would matter. I was lying to myself, but it was easier than admitting I was being a terrible sister. When Dylan left me too, I realized that maybe the problem wasn't that you had everything I wanted. Maybe the problem was that I was willing to destroy other people to get what I wanted. But by then, you seemed to be doing better. You'd met David, you were happy, and I thought maybe it was better to let sleeping dogs lie. I thought confessing would just hurt you all over again for no reason. I was wrong about that too. You deserve to know the truth 6 years ago. You deserve to know that Dylan's leaving had nothing to do with you and everything to do with us. You deserve to know that you weren't the problem. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even expect you to want to have a relationship with me anymore. But I needed you to know that I understand what I did. I understand that I didn't just betray you once. I betrayed you every day for 6 years by letting you carry shame that belonged to me. I'm going to tell Mom and Dad the whole truth. Not the sanitized version I told them years ago, but the real truth about how calculated my pursuit of Dylan was, about how I knew exactly what I was doing and did it anyway. I'm also going to start therapy. I should have done it years ago, but I was too proud to admit I needed help, too proud to admit that I was capable of doing something so cruel to someone I love. I know it's too late to fix what I broke, but maybe it's not too late to become the person I should have been all along. I love you, Julia. I know I have a terrible way of showing it, but I do love you, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. The message ended, and I sat in my quiet house, processing Emily's words. It was the most honest thing she'd ever said to me, the most real conversation we'd ever had, even though it was one-sided, and it was exactly what I'd needed to hear 6 years ago. I never called Emily back. Not because I was still angry, though I was, but because I wasn't ready. Her apology was real, but it was also the beginning of a process, not the end of one. She needed to do the work of becoming a better person, and I needed to do the work of healing from 6 years of gaslighting and self-doubt. Maybe someday we'd have a relationship again. Maybe someday I'd be able to forgive her. But that someday wasn't now. Marcus filed for divorce 3 months after the wedding. Emily didn't contest it. According to mutual friends, she moved back in with our parents and started seeing a therapist twice a week. Dylan disappeared again, this time apparently for good. His social media went dark, and none of Marcus's friends knew where he'd gone. Some people are just good at vanishing when things get complicated. My parents and I had exactly one conversation about the wedding. They called 2 weeks after the fact, ostensibly to check on me, but really to ask if I was ready to apologize to Emily and help put the family back together. I told them I was ready to have a relationship with them when they were ready to acknowledge that protecting Emily's feelings at my expense had damaged our family long before the wedding. I told them I was ready to move forward when they were ready to admit that enabling Emily's behavior had hurt everyone, including Emily herself. They weren't ready, so we don't talk much anymore. We exchange polite texts on birthdays and holidays, but the easy closeness we used to have is gone. Maybe it was never real anyway. Maybe it was just based on my willingness to be the accommodating daughter who never rocked the boat. But I sleep well at night now. For the first time in 6 years, I sleep without carrying the weight of shame that was never mine to carry. David and I are stronger than ever. Going through something like that, having your partner support you even when you're blowing up your entire family, either breaks a marriage or makes it unbreakable. We're in the latter category. And me? I'm okay. Better than okay, actually. I'm not the woman who spent 6 years wondering what was wrong with her. I'm not the woman who apologized for taking up space or asking for what she needed. I'm not the woman who prioritized other people's comfort over her own truth. I'm the woman who stood up in front of 200 people and refused to be silenced anymore. I'm the woman who chose truth over peace, honesty over harmony, self-respect over family approval. And sometimes, when I'm feeling petty, I'm the woman who knows that my sister's perfect Pinterest wedding will forever be remembered as the night everything fell apart. Epilogue: the truth always surfaces. 6 months after the wedding, I ran into Dylan's college roommate at a coffee shop. We'd never met, but he recognized me from the wedding photos that had inevitably made their way around social media. Yes, multiple people had recorded my toast and the aftermath. No, I don't regret it. "You're Julia," he said. "The sister?" I braced myself for judgment, for criticism about ruining Emily's special day. Instead, he said, "I wanted to thank you." I was confused. "Thank me?" "For telling the truth about Dylan. He's been pulling this kind of crap for years, getting involved with women who are already in relationships, convincing them to cheat, then disappearing when things get complicated." My blood ran cold. Years? He did it in college, too, and after college. You and your sister weren't the first, and you probably weren't the last. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. Dylan wasn't just a man who'd made a mistake. He was a predator who specifically targeted committed women, who got off on breaking up relationships. Why didn't anyone say anything? I asked. Because he's charming, and he's good at making it seem like the women pursued him. And because the women he targets are usually too ashamed to talk about it afterward. Like me, like Emily. But what you did at the wedding, calling him out publicly, that was brave. And it probably saved other women from going through what you and your sister went through. I left the coffee shop with a strange sense of completion. Not closure, exactly, but understanding. Dylan hadn't left me because I wasn't enough. He'd left me because he'd accomplished what he set out to do. He'd broken up my relationship and moved on to his next target. Emily had just been collateral damage in his game. That didn't excuse what she'd done. She'd still made the choice to betray me, still chosen to lie about it for years. But it added another layer to the story, another piece of the puzzle I'd been trying to solve for 6 years. Sometimes the truth isn't just about one betrayal. Sometimes it's about patterns, about people who hurt others for sport, about systems that protect the wrong people and silence the right ones. Sometimes the truth is bigger and messier and more complicated than you thought, but it's still the truth. And it's still worth telling. Sometimes the worst betrayal doesn't come from enemies. Sometimes it comes from the people who share your blood, the ones who are supposed to protect you, the ones who choose to look the other way when you're drowning. But sometimes all it takes to break years of silence is one whisper over dinner and the courage to finally say, "Enough." The truth always finds a way to surface. The only question is whether you'll be the one brave enough to speak it.